Hello everyone. Today we will not discuss hope, celebrate progress, or offer solace. Instead, we will enter a thorny thicket in contemporary art, where a grim feminist force, one that refuses to be held, takes root. It no longer believes the work will improve on its own, no longer trusts that systems can be designed with good intentions, and questions life itself as an unquestionable value. We will follow the trajectories of free artists to explore free interconnected harsh proposition, anti-generativity, the violence of care, and the irreparability of the subject. They are Johnny Holzer, who uses language as a code scalpel, Teresa Margos, who juxtaposes death and care, challenging the limits of perception. The Sophie Calle, who publicly displays intimate wounds as evidence of assistance. Part 1. Anti-generativity, when feminism becomes a grammar of destruction. No longer believing the world will get better on its own. This statement is the cornerstone of today's discussion. It signifies a break from an optimistic, progressive view of history. In art history, precursors to this rupture exist, such as Dadaism, mockery, and rejection of traditional art definitions, a posture of anti-art. But today's artists, especially female artists, have internalized this rebellion. It is no longer an external gesture, but an internal grammar of survival. The practice of Johnny Holzer is a paradigm of this grammar. Her early works, the Truisms and Inflammatory Essays series, posted sharp social critique and political declaration as anonymous posters on New York City streets. Phrases like abuse of power comes as no surprise, or protect me from what I want, and are not calls to action but diagnosis, not manifestos but revelation. They function like code operating at the base level of our social operating system. Here, Holzer's feminism is an anti-generative force. It does not aim to generate new, better images of women within the patriarchal system, which often results in other objects for the gaze, but seeks to dismantle the very linguistic system that generates those images. Her short phrases flashing on LED signs are precision-guided missiles aimed at the male gaze, designed to destroy the narrative logic that fixes women as objects of visual pleasure. Here, art is not about creating new objects, but the violent dismantling of existing symbolic systems. As explored by early conceptual art, art can be merely a statement or an attitude, with the critical thought process at its core. Holzer's work shows us that feminism can be a negative, deconstructive practice. It first says no, first commits to destruction. Part 2. The violence of care, the myth and material reality of caretaking. If the first negation targets language, the second strikes at a more fundamental ethics concerning the body and life. We enter the unsettling world of Teresa Margos. Margos directly employs material from the bodies of victims of Mexico's drug war and violence. Water used to wash corpses, fiber from strands, wax used in autopsy reconstruction in her work. In one piece, a humidifier vaporizes this water, filling the exhibition space with a mist that has physically touched the depth. The air the viewer breathes intermingles on a physical level with the act of caretaking that follows violence. This completely subverts our utopian imagination of regeneration and care. Traditionally, care is seen as inherently good, material and restorative. Regeneration is imbued with hope, whether ecological recovery or trauma healing. But Margos exposes the other side. At the skin of violence, care itself has become part of the cycle of violence, a sorrowful, necessary post-processing that cannot erase traces. Using substance from corpses in her work is not for commemoration or transcendence, but to present the material violence behind regeneration in a raw, physiological manner. This directly targets the myth of motherhood. Care is not innate and radiant. It can be heavy, dirty labor adjacent to death. Ecological utopianism. Regeneration is not a pure cycle. It is mixed with the indelible residue of trauma. Gentle versions of new materialism. Matter is not a spirited partner for gentle dialogue with humans. Matter is matter, capable of bearing extreme pain and indifference. This is a violence of care. It shows that in certain social realities, like systemic violence and poverty, even the most basic acts of care means to maintain life's dignity are contaminated by violence. Art here no longer offers detached aesthetic observation. but becomes a social humidifier, forcing you into that materially altered, unpreferable environment of violence. Part 3. The irreparability of the subject. The scar as proof of existence. Having navigated the deconstruction of language and the violence of matter, we arrive at the final question. Can the subject, that scared eye, ever be repaired? Sophie's work suggests a negative answer. Calle's lifelong practice revolves around intimate relationships, loss, pain, and voyeurism. Her methodology is transform personal trauma into a project that can be publicly observed, analyzed, even disposed of. In exquisite pen, she meticulously documents a heart-wrenching breakup, repeatedly recounting the story until the pen becomes formulaic through repetition. In Take Care of Yourself, after receiving a breakup email, she invites 107 women from different professions, including lawyers, actresses, scientists, to analyze the letter from their expert perspectives. There is no conventional healing or reconciliation here. Calle does the opposite. She prevents the healing of trauma but subjecting it to extreme relationalization, racialization, and public exposure. The pain is not transformed into a positive growth experience but is made into irreparable specimens. This echoes a key shift in contemporary restoration theory, from pursuing the myth of reversibility and restitution to accepting irreversibility and minimal intervention. Classic restoration theory sought to return a work to an original state, now seen as fantasy. The contemporary efforts emphasize that the traces of restoration are part of the work's history. Calle treats her emotional trauma similarly. She does not cover or repair the cracks of heartbreak, but makes the cracks themselves the primary structure of the work, inviting viewers to examine their texture. The subject is irreparable. Those wounds, losses, betrayals constitute the inalienable texture of subjectivity itself. Attempting to repair it means erasing its true history. Calle's art is precisely this ethical practice of non-restoration. She demonstrates a possibility. One can engage in core, even ruthless creation while carrying unhealable wounds. This is a post-traumatic subjectivity. It is not oriented toward a bright future, but rooted in the broken, irreparable present. Conclusion. speculating in the desolate space, revealing through negation. Jenny Holzer, Teresa Mogles, Sophie Calle, using language, matter, and autobiography, respectively, they collectively map a cartography of desolation for contemporary existence. Anti-generativity. Holzer destroys the old grammar that numbs off. Violence of care. Margot's exposes the material cruelty behind care, irreparability of the subject. Calle shows how wants become anchors of being. Their feminism is not a celebration of generative, reproductive, nurturing vitality. On the contrary, it is a negative, analytical, sometimes even destructive force. It demands we relinquish lazy fantasies of getting better, look directly at the systemic violence inherent in our structures, and acknowledge that scars are part of who we are. This may offer a colder but more solid starting point, when hope itself can become an anesthetic. This art that refuses to be held and insists on articulating pain becomes the most clear-headed, ethical, and political stance. It tells us that sometimes true strength lies not in building a new utopia, but in having the courage to say, "This place is already ruins, and I refuse to leave." That's all for today. In a world saturated with preset solutions, perhaps thinking about the unsolvable is the most necessary speculative exercise we need. Thanks you for watching.